Welcome to English Cat. Tonight, we're going to relax and listen to some stories about the weather. The world outside is quiet, and it is a perfect time to practice your English. As you lie there, just listen to the sound of my voice. You do not need to work hard or try to remember every word. Just let the sentences wash over you like a gentle rain. We often think of the weather as something simple, something we check on our phones in the morning. But the weather is more than just numbers or degrees. It is the feeling of the sun on your skin, the sound of the wind in the trees, and the way the air smells right before a storm. I want to tell you about a morning I remember very clearly. It was a spring morning, and the sun was just beginning to peek through the curtains. The light was soft and golden, not too bright. On days like that, the air feels fresh and new. I remember opening my window and feeling a cool breeze. It was that perfect balance where you are not too hot and not too cold. In my neighborhood, people always talk about the weather when they meet on the sidewalk. It is a friendly way to connect with others. I saw my neighbor, an older man named Mr. Miller, watering his plants. We both looked up at the blue sky. There wasn't a single cloud to be seen. I told him it was a beautiful day, and he smiled and agreed. He said that this kind of weather makes everything feel possible. We talked about how the flowers were starting to grow and how the birds seemed louder than usual. On sunny days like this, people seem a little happier. They walk a little slower, enjoying the warmth. Have you ever noticed how your mood changes when the sun comes out after a long winter? It feels like a heavy blanket has been lifted off your shoulders. You want to go for a walk, sit in a park, or just watch the light dance on the walls of your room. As the morning went on, I decided to walk to a small cafe nearby. The sun was getting a bit warmer, but the breeze stayed cool. I watched the shadows of the leaves moving on the ground. It was very peaceful. When I arrived at the cafe, I sat by the window. I watched people passing by. Some were wearing light jackets, and others were already in short sleeves. Everyone was talking about how nice it was. The barista at the cafe told me that sunny weather always makes the shop busier. People want to come out and be part of the world when the weather is kind. I sat there for a long time, just sipping my tea and looking at the clear sky. It was a deep, bright blue. It made me think about how much we depend on the weather for our daily plans and our feelings. We often take the sun for granted, but on a day like that, you really notice its power. It warms the earth and warms our hearts at the same time. Later that afternoon, I saw a few white, fluffy clouds starting to appear. They were moving slowly, like ships on a calm sea. They didn't look like rain clouds, they were just there to add some texture to the sky. I like watching clouds. Sometimes they look like animals or mountains. It is a very relaxing thing to do. If you have a moment today or tomorrow, maybe you can look at the clouds for a few minutes. It helps to clear the mind. By the time I walked home, the sun was starting to go down. The sky turned a soft pink and orange. The air became a little crisper, and I felt a sense of peace. It was a simple day, shaped entirely by the clear, sunny weather. These are the days we remember when the winter is long and dark. They remind us that the light always returns. As the sun sets on a sunny day, the transition into evening can be very beautiful. But sometimes the weather changes in a different way. I want to tell you about the beauty of a rainy evening. Many people think that rain is sad or boring, but I find it very comforting, especially when I am safe and warm inside. Imagine sitting in a comfortable chair near a window. Outside, the sky has turned a dark, heavy gray. The clouds are full of water, and you can feel the humidity in the air. Then it starts. First, you hear just a few drops hitting the glass. Tap, tap, tap. It is a slow rhythm. Then the rain becomes steady. It creates a constant, soothing sound that blocks out the noise of the world. It is like a white noise machine that nature creates. As the sun sets on a sunny day, the transition into evening can be very beautiful. But sometimes the weather changes in a different way. I want to tell you about the beauty of a rainy evening. Many people think that rain is sad or boring, but I find it very comforting, especially when I am safe and warm inside. Imagine sitting in a comfortable chair near a window. Outside, the sky has turned a dark, heavy gray. The clouds are full of water, and you can feel the humidity in the air. Then it starts. First, you hear just a few drops hitting the glass. Tap, tap, tap. It is a slow rhythm. Then the rain becomes steady. It creates a constant, soothing sound that blocks out the noise of the world. It is like a white noise machine that nature created just for us. When it rains like this in the evening, the world feels smaller and more private. The streets are empty because everyone has gone inside to find shelter. The streetlights reflect off the wet pavement, creating long streaks of yellow and white light. Everything looks shiny and clean. I remember one evening when the rain was particularly heavy. I stayed in my kitchen and made a pot of soup. The smell of the food mixed with the fresh, earthy smell of the rain coming through a tiny crack in the window. This is a smell called petrichor. It is the scent of the earth after it has been dry for a long time and then finally receives water. It is one of the most relaxing smells in the world. It reminds us that the plants and the trees are getting the drink they need to stay green and healthy. I called a friend that evening just to chat. We didn't talk about anything important. We just talked about the sound of the rain on our roofs. My friend lives in a different part of the city, and she said the rain was so loud she had to turn up the volume on her television. We laughed about how the weather gives us something to talk about even when we have no news. It's a shared experience. Everyone in the city was experiencing the same rain at the same time. It makes you feel connected to your community. I asked her if she liked the rain, and she said she loved it because it gave her an excuse to stay home and read a book. There is no pressure to be productive or to go outside when it is raining. The weather gives you permission to rest. As the night went on, the rain didn't stop. It just became softer. I watched the water running down the window pane. The drops joined together to form little rivers, racing each other to the bottom of the glass. It is very hypnotic to watch. Have you ever sat by a window and just watched the rain fall? It is a form of meditation. Your mind stops racing and you just focus on the present moment. The cool air from the rain makes the indoors feel even cozier. You might pull a blanket over your legs or put on some warm socks. The contrast between the wet, cold world outside and your warm, dry home is a wonderful feeling. It makes you feel grateful for your home and your comfort. Eventually, the rain became a very light mist, and the world grew very quiet. The only sound left was the occasional drip of water from the roof. It was the perfect atmosphere for a deep and peaceful sleep. Mornings are not always bright and sunny. Sometimes we wake up to a cloudy morning where the whole world seems to be wrapped in a soft gray blanket. These mornings have their own special kind of magic. When you look out the window, you cannot see the sun, but the light is very even and gentle. There are no harsh shadows. Everything looks soft and calm. I remember a Saturday morning like this. I woke up and saw that the sky was a solid, pale gray. There was a light fog resting over the trees in the distance. It felt like the world was moving in slow motion. On cloudy mornings, I like to take my time. I don't feel the need to rush into my day. I went for a walk in the park near my house. The grass was covered in tiny drops of dew, making it look silver. The fog was so thick in some places that I couldn't see the end of the path. It felt like I was walking through a dream. I met a woman walking her dog, a small golden retriever. The dog seemed very excited about the cool air. The woman and I nodded to each other. We didn't say much, just a quiet hello. The cloudy weather seems to encourage a quiet, respectful mood. You don't want to shout or make loud noises when the sky is so low and heavy. It feels like the clouds are holding the world in a gentle hug. I sat on a wooden bench for a while and just listened. Without the bright sun, you notice different things. You notice the way the wind moves through the tall grass. You notice the different shades of green in the leaves. Clouds are very interesting if you really look at them. They aren't just gray, they have layers of silver, charcoal, and even a bit of blue. I think about how clouds are just water vapor traveling across the sky. They are constantly changing shape and moving to new places. Sometimes they bring rain, and sometimes they just provide shade for the earth. On this particular morning, the clouds stayed for a long time. It made the colors of the flowers in the park look very bright. Red roses and purple lavender seemed to pop against a gray sky. It is a beautiful contrast. I wonder if you prefer sunny mornings or cloudy ones. There's something very honest about a cloudy day. It doesn't ask you to be happy or energetic. It just lets you be exactly who you are. By noon, the fog had lifted, but the clouds remained. I went to the grocery store and I overheard two people talking about the weather. One person was complaining that it was a gloomy day. The other person said they liked it because it wasn't too hot to work in the garden. It is interesting how two people can look at the same sky and feel different things. For me, a cloudy day is a day for reflection. It is a day to think about my goals and my thoughts. It is a day for writing in a journal or organizing a bookshelf. As I walked back home, I felt a sense of calm. The gray sky wasn't sad at all. It was just peaceful. It was a reminder that we don't always need the sun to have a good day. Sometimes the soft light of a cloudy morning is exactly what we need to find our balance again. Summer brings a different kind of energy. I want to talk about those hot summer afternoons when the sun is high in the sky and the heat feels like a physical weight. In the middle of July, the world feels very different than it does in the spring. The air is thick and warm, and you can see the heat shimmering over the roads. These are the days when everything slows down. Even the animals find a place in the shade to rest. I remember a summer afternoon when I visited my grandparents in the countryside. The sun was incredibly bright, and the sky was a pale, dusty blue. We sat on the porch where there was a little bit of shade and a slow-moving ceiling fan. We had tall glasses of cold lemonade with lots of ice. You could see the water forming on the outside of the glasses. We didn't talk much because it was too hot for long conversations. We just watched the golden fields of wheat swaying slightly in the distance. Occasionally, a grasshopper would jump through the dry grass. The sound of the insects in the summer is very specific. It is a buzzing sound that seems to get louder as the temperature rises. It is the sound of summer. I asked my grandfather how he managed the heat when he was a young man working on the farm. He told me that you just have to move slowly and respect the sun. You work in the early morning and the late evening, and you rest when the sun is at its peak. It is a good lesson for life. We cannot always be working at full speed. Sometimes the environment tells us to stop and wait. In the city, hot summer afternoons feel a bit different. The buildings hold on to the heat, and the air can feel very still. People seek out air conditioning or go to public fountains to cool off. You see children playing in the water, laughing and splashing. For them, the heat is just an excuse to have fun. I like to find a library or a bookstore on a hot afternoon. These places are always cool and quiet. Walking into a cold building after being in the hot sun is a wonderful feeling. Your skin starts to cool down and your heart rate slows. You can find a book and disappear into another world while the sun blazes outside. Have you ever spent a whole afternoon inside just to stay away from the heat? It feels like a little vacation from the real world. As the afternoon turns into evening, the heat starts to fade, but the ground stays warm for a long time. This is when people come out of their houses. They sit on their steps or walk to the ice cream shop. There is a feeling of community in the summer heat. We are all sharing the same experience. We are all looking for a breeze. I remember watching the sunset on one of those hot days. The sky was filled with deep reds and purples. It was a dramatic end to a long, slow day. Even though the heat can be difficult, it makes us appreciate the cool water and the shade. It reminds us of the power of nature and the changing seasons. Summer is a time of growth and abundance, and the hot sun is the engine that makes it all happen. When you finally go to bed on a summer night, you might leave the window open to catch a tiny bit of movement in the air. The heat of the day is gone, leaving only a warm memory. Now, let us think about the opposite of the summer heat. Let us imagine a cool winter night. The air is sharp and thin. When you breathe in, you can feel the coldness in your lungs. It is a very clean feeling. Everything is frozen and still. If there is snow on the ground, the world becomes very quiet because the snow absorbs all the sound. It is a different kind of silence than you find in any other season. I remember walking home late one night in December. The moon was full and bright, reflecting off the white snow. It was so bright that I didn't even need the streetlights to see my way. My breath formed little clouds of steam in the air. Each step I took made a crunching sound in the frozen snow. I was wearing a heavy coat, a scarf, and gloves. I felt like I was in my own little bubble of warmth. When it is very cold outside, you become very aware of your own body and your own warmth. It is a very grounding experience. I looked at the houses I passed. Most of them had lights glowing in the windows, and some had smoke rising from their chimneys. It made me think about the people inside, sitting by a fireplace or drinking hot chocolate. Winter is a time for coming together and staying cozy. It is a time for stories and long nights. I wonder what your favorite winter memory is. Perhaps it is a holiday with family, or perhaps it is just the first time you saw snow falling from the sky. When I finally got home that night, the house felt incredibly warm and welcoming. I took off my heavy layers and felt light again. I made a cup of herbal tea and sat by the window to look out at the cold world. It is a strange and beautiful thing to be so close to the cold, but so safe from it. The stars in the winter sky always seem much brighter and clearer than in the summer. They look like tiny diamonds on a black cloth. I spent a long time looking at the constellations, trying to remember their names. The winter sky feels vast and ancient. It reminds us that we are part of a very big universe. The weather, in all its forms, is a connection between us and the earth. Whether it is the bright sun of a spring morning, the rhythmic rain of a quiet evening, the soft clouds of a lazy Saturday, the heavy heat of a summer afternoon, or the crisp cold of a winter night, the weather is always there. It is the background music of our lives. It influences what we wear, what we eat, and how we feel. It gives us something to talk about with strangers and something to share with friends. As you listen to my voice, I hope you feel a sense of peace. The world is constantly changing, and the weather is a part of that change. Just like the seasons, our lives have different chapters. Some are bright and full of energy, and others are quiet and reflective. Now it is time to let go of the day. The weather outside doesn't matter anymore. You are safe, you are warm, and you are tired. Think about the soft rain or the gentle sun. Let those images fill your mind. Your breathing is slow and steady. You have practiced your English and you have listened to stories of the world. You have done enough for today. The stars are out and the world is sleeping. Tomorrow will bring its own weather and its own stories. But for now, there is only the quiet. There is only the rest you deserve. Listen to the silence between my words. Feel the weight of your body as you relax into your bed. Everything is calm. Everything is exactly as it should be. Sleep is coming to you now, as natural as the rain and as certain as the sunrise. Rest well and have sweet dreams.